All right, so the beginning of this lecture will look a little odd if you start playing it, but hopefully, since you were here, you'll remember what happened. All right, so the parts of my language, the reserved words, I will bold here. Okay. And so this is an example of nesting a conditional, right, inside of a loop. So last time we talked just about a conditional, like, hey, how do you do ifs and else's together? Now we have this idea of a loop, and inside of the loop, we're doing something a little special here. We're actually asking a question. And I think the hardest part of this is just to wrap your head around the idea that number list is a long list of numbers, and number is changing its value. And every time we run through this loop, number gets a new value in the list. Okay? So let me make sure that's really clear. I think that is particularly important. I'll let's see scenes here. Whiteboard. Okay, so this is my list, right? Now number is going to point or become the value of each one of these things in turn. So the first time through the loop, number is 1. And then number points to 2. Do you see that idea? And so the loop will run how many times?
Until the number list is done.
Exactly. And the benefit of this syntax, I mean syntax meaning the rules of how do you write this code, the benefits of using a syntax like this is that we don't have to explicitly write the length of the list, right? Our code adapts to the length of the list. Okay, and we'll find that like in a language like C, that's not the case. You have to be very explicit in how you run your loops. But in MATLAB, we've got a nicer syntax where we can just say, hey, here's a bunch of things, do them all. Okay? So that's, in the Google Doc is something I'll call pseudocode. All right? It means that it's written in a intermediate language somewhere between normal human conversation and something that a computer could execute. Okay? And once it's in this representation, once you know the rules of a particular programming language, it should be relatively trivial to implement this in a particular programming language. Okay, so by the end of this class, I could give you an exam question where they give you pseudocode like this, and I'll say, hey, write this program in C and write it in MATLAB. And you should be like, okay, I got it. There's slightly different rules, semicolons here, parentheses there, right? The details of the language. But the thought, right, the algorithm is entirely expressed in this pseudocode. Okay? So now let's take this pseudocode and put it into something that actually runs in MATLAB. So far in MATLAB, we have only written single-line commands, used it really like you would use a calculator. If I want to switch and start to think about MATLAB more as a programming environment, I need to actually write more than one line, and this program is going to be maybe like 4 or 5 lines, and then execute all that at once. Okay, so the command to open up a program editor, and we'll call this a script file, is to say edit, and then the name of the file that you want to edit, and it'll just create it if it doesn't exist yet. So EW200 example might be a fine thing to call this. And so you see I have a prompt. Oh, maybe you can't see that I have a prompt here. But I do, and it says, hey, it doesn't exist. Do you want to create it? And I say, sure. And then the layout of my editor will change. You see now I've got a blank document in the top. And whatever I type here, I can then execute as a chunk by calling this script. Okay, so let's just make sure that makes sense. If I say the command to display something in MATLAB, the easiest way to do it, at least, is use the disp command. Disp and then single quotes, hello world. So just run that and you see it says hello world. If I put that same text, I just highlight Control C, Control V right here. Okay. And then I save it. You'll see there's an asterisk in the editor and the tab when you haven't saved the changes. So go ahead and Control S to save that. And then click Run. And you see it's just saying hello world. Okay. You can also run a script by putting the name of the script in the editor down here. So I can say EW200 _ examples. And when I hit enter, it'll run it. Okay. So make sure you do this. I mean, I realize it looks trivial, but the devil's in the details. I can't tell you how many times students have come up to me after class and be like, well, it all made sense, but none of it works for me. Right? So please, while you're watching me do this, do it yourself. And you'll save yourself a lot of headache on the homework or something when you're like, God, it looks so easy in lecture, and here I am on this dialogue, which I wasn't familiar with. So please do this on your own. Okay, and I'm going to walk you through the syntax of the MATLAB programming language so far, and I think a lot of this looked familiar as you did the on-ramp. But let's go ahead and give ourselves a number list. So we're going to declare number list equals, and then 23, 100, -5, -10, 100, say. Okay? And I'll put a semicolon there because I don't want to see that output. Notice that MATLAB also puts a health indicator on the side of your editor here. So what we're looking for is green. If you've done something weird that MATLAB thinks could cause problems, it'll turn orange. It'll say a warning's found. And if you do something illegal, then it will turn red and say, hey, this is bad, right? So check it periodically, and it should say green. And that means you have healthy code. Okay? So there's number list. I'm going to say for number equals number list. All right. And so I'm replacing the word in, which I used in the pseudocode, with the symbol equals. And that's just how the MATLAB language designers decided to do it. You can disagree with it, and I do. I tend to disagree with that syntax. Languages like Python or JavaScript have actually used the word in. So but it's a syntax, right? It's the rules of language. You learn to live with it. Okay. Notice also that I use the keyword end at the bottom here to indicate that it's the end of the loop. So that means that anything I put inside of here, that will be executed multiple times. Okay. And now I can use the word if. Okay. Number is less than 0. And I have to have an end to match that. And I'll say disp negative number. So you see when I put it into code, like real code, not a whole lot's changed. It's just become a little bit harder to read. But now it can actually execute. So the benefit of moving away from pseudocode is it actually does something, right? The downside is that you can get kind of lost in some of the syntax rules. Okay, so let's try this out. We'll go ahead and click play, click the run button. And you see we've got positive, positive, negative, negative, positive. And it looks good. You see one in this loop. Okay. Now, something that's really nice about MATLAB is that you can pause the execution of your program while it runs and watch it run. Okay, so before I go further, I want to make sure everyone's got this going on here. So go ahead and make sure you have this example, and then I'm going to pick like 2 of you, and you're going to share your screen, and you're going to show me that you've got this in the editor and that you can run it. So go ahead and do this. And if you have problems doing it, let me know. But I'll give you a few minutes here in case you're not there yet.
Yes, sir. Sorry, can you show again how you did the for and the end and how you created that like indented space there?
Oh, this is done for you as you type. And if it doesn't, if for some reason you didn't, like it's all wonky, you can just highlight all of this and then hit the green smart indent, and it'll fix it up for you.
Okay.
Yeah. The plus sign in here, that all comes for free. That's because MATLAB is something we call an integrated development environment. It kind of watches as you type and makes the editing experience a little bit better. Does that answer your question?
I just had a question. To get that new EW200 examples window, didn't you use DISP?
No, you say edit.
Oh, edit. Okay, so it's edit. All right.
Yeah, and then just whatever the name of the thing you want to call your file. It doesn't have to be called EW200 examples, but it can, for example, start with a number. It can't have symbols in it. Just, normal file name conventions. All right, once you're done and you're able to run this, go ahead and give yourself a little emoji of some sort to indicate that things are good for you. Party. That's good. And of course, if things aren't good for you, let me know and we can make them good. Oh, the emojis go away. I thought they were permanent. Whatever. All right. Maybe give me a sad emoji if you're, or let me know if you're still working. Anybody still working? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Peter, why don't you show us your setup? Can you share it? Oh, you know what? I think I've got to do a little bump here. Yeah.
Alright, so I'm doing it on a different computer right now, so I can just kind of point it towards you. So
Oh, I was curious. The view angle there. I figured your web. Okay.
yeah, not much.
All right. Yeah, that works. Sure. Good.
But it ran and works correctly.
It looks good. Look, from here, the world, you can program autonomous robots and everything else with this. Once you master the for loop. See, Ben, how's it going?
Mine's all good. I'm using the online thing. I think it's called like Simulink or something, because the actual MATLAB's taking forever to load. But I don't know how to click run on this.
Okay, so if you're using the MATLAB online, you can do that. You've got you can just open up a Google, Chrome instance or whatever, and say MATLAB.
Well, the actual thing opened, so I'll just copy it over and see if it works.
It should act exactly identical to the downloaded version, including like if you type the word edit, and give it a file name here. I'll switch over to the online one for 2 seconds. So Simulink is another thing. It comes with MATLAB and it's integrated in a lot of ways with MATLAB. It allows you to simulate complicated systems. But let's see. I'll go ahead and share my.
It just says it's MATLAB online.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said Simulink. There's something else that's called that. But.
Yeah. So you see here we've got a run button. Let's say view. I've also got mine a bit customized because I'm working some other things here. But if you say edit EW200, let me just make this smaller here. Right, you can see my screen here. Edit EW200 demo. All right, it'll bring up an editor, and I can say disp. Let me just display. All right, and then I can click the run button up here, and so it runs all the same way. Does that? Are you seeing a different interface?
I was able to open the actual one. It just took forever to open on my computer. I can share my screen now.
Okay. Oh, wait, so you're able to get the regular thing to work.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. All right. Anybody else still working? Okay. All right, then let's try to see if we can.
The one who can't hear him.
What's that? Sorry, did someone have it? Yeah,
You can
Justin.
hear him just fine. No, that wasn't me, sir. I think someone said they couldn't hear.
Okay. Okay, so you can't hear. Good. All right. If you don't have MATLAB running or the whole thing's crashed and falling apart on you, go just Google MATLAB online and you'll see the exact same interface in a web browser. It's actually quite a nice capability. The only downside of using it in a web browser is that it's sometimes a little clunkier. Like if you want to scroll up and down quickly, it doesn't respond quite as well. But other than that, especially for this class, the online version is fine. So don't let that hold you back. So Andrew's going to rejoin, so that's good. Okay. All right. Let me go back to just showing you the MATLAB screen here. And, oh no, what happened to my MATLAB? Okay. So maybe it didn't work, right? Maybe let's say I flip this around. And now I'm panicking because I'm getting the wrong answer every time. But I can't figure out why. Okay? Wouldn't it be nice to step through this line by line and say, MATLAB, what's your thought process? Why are you doing this, right? So what we can do is in the left-hand margin here, you see these horizontal dashes? You can click them, and then when you do, a little red circle will appear. Okay? And then when I click run, it will pause at the first red circle it hits. Okay? And the command window below will change a little bit. It will say K and then the prompt brackets. And so now I'm inside the context of this script. So now my workspace reflects anything I've done inside of here. For example, I have the number 100. All right, so I can say step. You see in the top here, I can click step, and I do one step. And when I hover my cursor over number, what does it equal? It makes sense, right? 23. Okay. Sorry, what's that?
Well, I was just saying it was a motivating 23, sir.
Oh, good. Yeah, very good. I'm like hyper vigilant for the sounds of a desperate student like losing internet connection and going falling off the earth. It happens more often than we'd like. Okay, good. So you can see by hovering your cursor around these different values. If you hover over a number list, you see, of course, the values here. We can go ahead and step and say, oh, look, I'm down here. My number is 23. Because of course, my greater than sign is messed up. Okay. And so then all you do is you just change it to a less than. Okay. And then you can't actually continue to debug a program that you've changed the code for. Okay. So you'll see the stop sign will kind of gray out here. And just go ahead and just hit quit debugging. And then you'll lose the K and you'll be back to normal. Okay, when you're done and you want to just run it without stopping, just click the stop sign again. It's called a breakpoint. And then when you click run, all's well. Okay, and I think this is like an invaluable tool to get, to be familiar with. As you write code and it doesn't do what you want, the ability to pause it, poke around at it, and then resume the execution is really quite nice. Okay, So for this simple program, there isn't a whole lot more to explore with the debugger. As we write more complex code, I'll show you some other tools you can use, like stepping over and running until something's complete and doing some other fancier tools. But please use the breakpoints, and that'll help you out a lot. Okay? Questions? All right, so...
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, Megan.
So the K, that stands specifically for debugging
Yes.
something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a visual indicator to you that you're not actually just executing MATLAB commands, that you're actually inside of the debugger. Okay.
Would you run a specific command with the K and the double
Oh yeah,
arrows?
it acts the same as if. So let's do that. That's a great question. So here I am. I put a breakpoint. It's gonna break at the first negative number. So I'll say run, and here I am, and I can say 2 plus 2, and that would give me 4, right? So I can execute code just as before. The nice thing about the command window now is that I can actually change the pieces of my program. So if number is equal to -5 here, I could say, oh, you know what if number was equal to 10? You know, I can set number equal to 10, and then as I step through the program, that actually changes how things work. Okay? So that's getting more advanced. Like this program here, there's not a whole lot to poke at while you're debugging it. But for example, when you're making your video game, you might want to pause the execution and all of a sudden give the user an extra life. You know, because you want to keep debugging the current game session, and it's a real hassle if you have to start over from scratch. So let's pause it, change the value of lives to 99, and then resume it again. And it's sort of like a cheat mode, right? To help you out while you develop. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm just going to sit here silently for a moment until somebody admits they have a question.
Hey, sir, I'll admit I have a question.
Very
You
good.
said that there was like this green indent button before, and I couldn't find that.
Okay, good. So it's if you go up to the top, I think they call it a ribbon, right? There's home, plots, apps. If you click on the editor, okay. Now it depends on how large your screen is. If you've got MATLAB quite small, you'll lose some buttons. But if you drag MATLAB open a lot, there's a region right in the middle where it says Insert, Comment, and Indent. And you can either choose to indent a chunk, dedent a chunk, or smart indent.
I don't know if this is like this for anyone else, sir, but I only have home, plots, and apps. I do not have editor or any of the other.
Well, make sure you have an editor open. You won't see it if you don't have. You want to share your screen, and then we can take a look.
Yes, sir.
You just have to click new.
Okay, yeah. So you don't have an editor open. So go ahead and say, you're not in a script here. So say edit space.
Oh, okay.
Like EW200 demo, just to. No space though.
Okay.
No, don't do that. Yeah, no. Edit EW200, maybe underscore demo, right? It's got to be a valid file name, like no spaces. What you did was you edited both the EW200 script and the demo script. The EW200 didn't exist, but demo happens to be something, and so that's what you got there. Now I click yes. Right, and now you can put in that code. So if you scroll up and highlight Control-C, Control-V, that for loop.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you, sir.
And then you see the indent, the green indent button.
Yep.
Good.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, very good. What else? Okay. So there was only one kind of conditional, if. You could ask a question. If this is true, do something else, do something else. Right? That is pretty simple. It turns out we have two kinds of loops. For is one of them. Okay? For is a loop where you know the number of times you need to go through something, right? So for the items in this list, go through them one by one. There are other times when it's, your loop is better represented as do something while a particular condition is valid. Okay? So like, you might want to say for your video game, while the player hasn't hit a rock, continue to increase the score, right? Or continue to move the enemies around. And then, the minute the player hits a rock, then something else changes, right? So some loops in our code will be relying on maybe external events, and we don't know how long they'll have to run for. Okay? So this is actually a more general way of thinking about loops, and it turns out you can always write a for loop using a while structure. Okay, but generally we'll stick with the two being for loops are when you can count the number of iterations you want to do. Like, beforehand, you have 10 items in the list, you want to do 4 of the items in the list, do this, blah, 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 blah. The while will have a question in it, just like if. The same way you said, hey, if the number is greater than 0, then do something, right? While, question mark, do this loop. Okay? So why don't we do another quick little program here in the last 10 minutes. And rather than displaying something's positive or negative, let's count the number of positive items in the list before the first negative. Okay? So we're going to go through and keep adding and adding and adding, and then the first time we hit a negative number, we'll say, oh, the list starts with this many positive numbers. Okay? And this is a bit of a, you could write this with a for loop, and that's, but let's try to use a while loop here, and I'm going to help you out. Okay? So let's go back to the Google Doc, and we'll write the pseudocode using this idea of a while. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop. I'm going to change my mind. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to give you a different kind of program. I'm going to give you one that fits while a little bit better. There's a way that you can ask for information from the user in MATLAB. Let's try that out. Let's just learn how to ask the user for a number. Did the MATLAB on-ramp cover this?
Not yet for me, sir.
Not yet. Okay. So let's see. I want to get a... let me fix my... There we go. All right, and I'll stop the debugging here, and we'll get out of this. Okay. Try that out. And I prefer always if you say x equals input, enter a number, and then give me a colon and a space, That's kind of nice. And see if that makes sense. So the syntax here, this is like if you go back to, the first day when I talked about boxes and how some of them have inputs, some have outputs, some have both. This is a type of box that has an input and an output. The input we give it is the prompt. This is the prompt that we want to display to the user. And somehow this box can read the keyboard and populate X with whatever the user entered. Okay? So now we can write a program that actually the user gives us numbers, and we continue to add them up until the user enters a negative number, and then we stop and give you and then print out the sum. Okay, so see how that's different, right? In the previous loop, we knew beforehand how many times we had to go through the loop. We got the array number list. It had a certain number of values in it. Here, where it's something new, it's a little bit more complex. The user is giving us the numbers on the fly, and it might go on for quite a while, or might be done very soon. Okay. So we might not actually be able to write this in MATLAB today, but let's go ahead back to the Google Doc here and look at some pseudocode. I'll say while number greater than 0, sum equals sum plus number. And then I want to say print sum. Yeah, something like this. Let me make sure this looks a little less crazy. So we're getting close here. So while number is greater than 0, sum equals sum plus number, print sum. Something like this, right? But there's a few more things we need to add here. So let's go back. What was the problem with the loop on the first page here? On when we were adding up the integers from 0 to 1. What did we have to do for sum?
We had to assign it to 0.
Yeah. And so let's do the same thing here. Sum equals 0. We'll initialize sum to a value, and that will allow us to write this without getting some weird error about, assigning a value that hasn't actually been created yet. Okay, so sum equals 0. But where am I actually getting the value for number? Number also isn't initialized. How should I initialize number? Somebody else.
Sorry, I thought X was what you were entering.
Oh, that was here. Yeah, you could say something like this, like number, equals input. So this was just showing you how to use the input command in MATLAB. Okay, but in my pseudocode world, I'm not too worried about the details. I remember my pseudocode world, I said at the very front of this Google document, I said, hey, I've got the ability to do basic math, I can print, and I can read. And so if you go back to program 1, you see we have the ability to say x equals read a number and y equals read a number. So we'll do the same thing here. Right? But maybe if it makes it easier, I can replace number with x. This is just the name of a variable. But where do I get the value for x? Who knows the value for x? Does the computer know it?
Doesn't it come from the user?
Exactly, yeah. So just how I initialize sum to 0, I better initialize x to what? Read a number. Right? If the user enters a negative number right off the bat, that's fine. This will never be true. I'll never do this, and I'll print out 0 and fine. But this program has a fatal flaw. If you tried to run this as is, your computer would crash. Or it would not be happy. Why? If I put in 10, and so x equals 10, and I'm looking at this while x is greater than 0, and I'm adding it to sum.
There's no terminating condition?
Yeah, x is never changing, right? I should update the value for x. Otherwise, I've got this infinite loop. So what should x be equal to after this?
Sum?
Well, I want to get
Another number.
another number. Another number. right? And you might look at this and understand what I'm doing here now, but maybe tomorrow when you come back to this document, it's confusing again. So what I like to put is a comment. Say, hey, get another number. And so this // indicates that this is just for humans. And so all programming languages have some capability of putting in some notes. Do you believe this program would work? I mean, I'll tell you, this works. This is done. There's nothing else secret about it. But look at this, and we'll start tomorrow's class off by implementing this in MATLAB. You already have the tools to do it, so if you'd like to go ahead and try it, please do so. But we'll start lab tomorrow with this prompt, and we'll actually write this loop. Okay? And that will complete our discussion of basically coding concepts. Everything else will just be getting better at it, right? You know how to write statements, you know how to do conditions like if conditions, and we know how to do both kinds of loops. All right, and that's the whole sum of the programming kind of structures we'll use. Pretty good. It's like week 2, and we're starting week 3, I suppose, and we're all done with that. All right, so that's all I've got today. Go ahead and continue to work on the on-ramp. I'll give you some time tomorrow for that as well. And let me know if you have any questions. Okay? Good to go?
Just one question.
Go ahead.
Are you going to be adding that certificate folder drop-off into the classroom, or should we just email it to you?
No, I'll do that. I'll do that now. And good on you for keeping me honest. I will. I'll put that on the classroom, and mostly I'd like to just try out that workflow to make sure that I can see what you've done and that you all know how to submit. Yeah, it won't be a hard grade, right? But I'll put that up there now. Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Great. All right. Well, have a good day.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Sure.
sir.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just tripped over a wall.
Oh, sorry.
Fun. What's going on with John's soccer tonight?
Oh yeah, good question. I'm gonna take care of him today because I just want to. I think it'd be hard if you had all the kids and you had to run out of the car and do something. So I'll try to figure out where it is and give you better details. But I'm gonna take him at 5.
Okay. So you're gonna take him at 5. Okay. So
Sorry.
what time should we get in here and get ready? Because I don't know what time you guys have to leave.
Oh sure. I mean it's at the middle school,
Oh.
so right by Kinder Farm,
So
and it starts at 5. So
I'll have him in at like 4, just because. Maybe 4:15. Sometimes it takes a while.
it takes him a little bit.
Although
That's true.
he's been getting better, so I'm trying to get the kids outside now,
Mm-hmm.
so we can at least get out for. Well, I'll stay out with Charlotte and Jake while you guys are
Yeah,
gone.
yeah.
But they're all in the crib and they keep fighting and it's just not going well. And I think I hear
Yeah.
something again.
I would throw them outside and lock the door and then just. All right. Thanks.